It's now my great honor to introduce Senator Daniel Inouye from the state of Hawaii. I could spend the rest of our time talking about all the wonderful things that Senator Inouye has done, but I won't do that because you want to hear him, not me. I will say that he's the second most senior member of the Senate, chairman of the Appropriations Committee, and an important pillar of U.S. Japan relations. As evidence of that, he helped establish the Interparliamentary Exchange Program between the U.S. Senate and the Japanese Diet. In the year 2000, the government of Japan presented him with the Grand Cordon of the Order of the Rising Sun. Senator Inouye, we're pleased to have you.
My only complaint is, why didn't she introduce me? My claim to fame is that she's my wife. In the United States Senate, when a statement is made by a distinguished colleague, and he says exactly what you want to say, you say, Mr. President, I wish to associate myself with the remarks of the gentleman. And that would simplify it. I can just sit down. But I did spend some time preparing these remarks, so, Mr. Ambassador, if I may. In 1977, an extraordinary person, respected by all who knew him and worked with him, became the United States Ambassador to Japan. He was a good friend. He was a majority leader of the United States Senate, Mike Mansfield of Montana. It's noteworthy that on his first speech as ambassador, he made a very interesting observation. That observation is now known as the Mansfield Declaration. He said, and I quote, "The U.S. Japan relationship is the most important bilateral relationship in the world, bar none," end of quote. And over the years, this declaration has become the cornerstone of diplomatic relationship throughout the world. And it's still recognized, and it's still followed. As the ambassador pointed out, for example, the first nation that our Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, officially visited was Japan. She could have gone to England, but no, she went to Japan. The first head of state invited by the new president was Prime Minister Aso of Japan. And these events may seem simple to some, but it sent a very strong diplomatic message throughout the world. As some of you are aware, Ambassador Mansfield was the longest-serving ambassador from 1977 to 88. And his tenure marked a time of maturity in the U.S.-Japan relationship. It was during the 70s that the security treaty was entered into, which expanded our military presence in Japan. Yokosuka became a major naval base. Okinawa became the home of a large contingent of Marines. Bases like Misawa and Zama and Yokota were further developed. This arrangement also allowed for the cooperation of our two nations in a very dynamic relationship. And this may come as a surprise to some, but in order to help the Japanese revive its economy, and needless to say, the Great War did much damage there, the United States unofficially adopted a weakness in our diplomatic eyesight and opened our trading doors a bit wider to allow Japanese goods into our market. And so cars and electronics and other goods began entering the American marketplace, competing against American industries. And they were able to flood our markets and, in essence, challenged our goods by cutting prices. We did all of this deliberately. It may appear strange, but it was necessary, at least we felt so. Decision on the part of the United States to adopt a policy of diplomatic blindness came at a cost to some of our industries. But that was to be understood. Nevertheless, we felt that it was in the national interest of the United States and the national interest of Japan that we carry out this friendly policy. And the stability of our relationship allowed for both nations to develop closer, diplomatically and economically. And the pole that the ambassador referred to is a real pole, and it is not in any other country can come close to that. Americans love the Japanese, and the Japanese love the Americans. I'm about the oldest person in this room, so I come from a generation that looked upon the Japanese as the most hated enemy we've ever had in our history. Today, our best friend. Well, as the ambassador pointed out, in the past year, there have been extraordinary changes in the political and industrial makeup of our nations. And this presents new challenges, real challenges, to this long-standing friendship that we have. In Japan, for the first time, as all of us are aware, a new political party is in control of the lower house. And in the United States, in both houses, we have large majorities. And we have a new president, also of the same party. And the thrust of the voters in the U.S. and Japan reflected a desire for new direction, new ideas, and changes.